is the Vintage RPG Podcast, your source for the best in classic and contemporary RPGs. With your hosts, Hambone and Stu.
Welcome to the Vintage RPG Podcast, coming at you again from the clubhouse, hidden somewhere in the swamps of New Jersey. I'm John Hambone McGuire, and with me, as always, is the founder and publisher of Unwinnable. He often marches to his own drummer, and when he marches west. Stu Horvath.
Technically, I don't, because I can't conceptualize the whole campaign. Like, it's supposed to be like, I can't because we read left to right. Like, I have to have us march east. So we've been marching east this whole time.
Fair play. Dear listener, I do apologize. I'm losing my voice. That's why I sound so raspy and not the dulcet tones you may have become accustomed to. But we are stoked, man. Besides Stu and I, we've got Justin Wigard and Clay Fleischer here tonight talking about the West Marches campaign that they are currently embroiled in with Stu. And yeah, we're going to have a fun little chat with some of our pals tonight. So Stu, why don't you lead the march?
My victims.
I've heard it both ways.
So yeah, no, I wanted to kind of do a little thing on the West March campaign for patrons, because we've made it a whole year. Justin, you have the stat sheet. How many times did we play in the last year?
Oh, I have the mega stat. So in the last year, we have played, well, if you count yesterday, we have played 36 times.
36 times out of 52-ish possible weeks is pretty good.
Solid record.
The whole idea, for listeners who don't know, is that basically for an undefined reason, all of the player characters and many other refugees have traveled east and settled in this hex, one corner of this larger hex that the player characters have been exploring inch by inch, mile by bloody mile for the last year. My intention was I wanted to try something with the West March concept, which was come up with by Ben Robbins a long time ago for his 3rd edition game. The idea is that it's on demand, and basically that the players drive play. They decide where they want to go, what they want to do, and I'm just there to sort of mediate that. I wanted to modify it in a couple ways. I wanted to have sort of a base building thing with this settlement, which we still haven't really implemented, and I wanted to try and do something. I wanted to try and find sort of a narrative framework that allowed me to run a Dungeons and Dragons game that sort of removed a lot of the hostilities that are just sort of naturally in D&D. Like, I didn't want like there to be enemy kobolds, orcs, and that sort of thing that were just like automatically, monsters that were there to kill. I wanted a landscape that was to be explored and had lots of mystery to it, to be pieced together over time. And I don't know, it seems it's still going, which is a good sign. I don't know if it's successful, but everybody seems to have fun. Well, silence.
No, I mean, I think it's great. I was going to let Clay jump in.
Oh, yeah, I haven't missed one, so I think that kind of speaks for itself.
And I've killed you a whole bunch of times.
You've killed us each twice so far. So
Wait, only twice? All right. But I have 7 bodies, right?
Yeah, you have 7 bodies, so it's Clay twice. Actually, you got 3 of us in one session. That was a very, very bloody session really early on. You got me, Clay, and Mark like in the first month. Mm-hmm. And then Clay and I another time each, and then Chris and Andy have each lost a character. So yeah, 7 total.
Yeah.
That's ruthless, man. 7 in a year. Only 36 weeks.
I've been trying real hard lately, and they've gotten better. It's funny. There's this really interesting play loop where they want to go someplace new, and they'll pick a hex, and then they'll explore it, and then something like monstrous will happen, or like somebody will almost die, and then half the group is sort of like, well, we should go back there and figure out what's going on, and the other half is like, no, let's never go back to that hex ever again. Like, you guys didn't even get killed by the Grell that happened 2 weeks ago, and you're all just no.
Well, that was a skin of our teeth kind of getting out of that one, but
you don't know that.
Well, it seemed like it, but I feel like it has a very I hate to use the term Metroidvania kind of thing where we like, oh, we're going to explore this area. Oh, we just came across something we can't deal with right now. We're going to have to come back to it later when, if it were a video game, you'd have extra powers. With this, it's like we need to come back with more people or when we leveled up a little bit and have this spell or this item.
So the idea behind a West Marches game is that it's supposed to be sort of a little bit competitive, that people are kind of like jockeying to get the better treasure, to get the better encounters so that they could level up faster and find all the secrets. And there's like a FOMO thing that it's supposed to leverage. But with this group, and I don't know if it's naturally the group alone just being a very collaborative group, or if there's something about the way that the hexes have and the dangers that are in the hexes have forced people to like you guys roll. We had like 10 players in multiple sessions. Like I've never ran D&D for so many people, and to have that gang of people traipsing across the wilderness and still be kind of terrified of everything is so good.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about that. Because that Discord is actually pretty active. Like we're kind of talking week in, week out, day in and day out. And I think it also kind of is a little bit of a testament to the tight-knit community that you both have built in the vintage RPG Discord. Like we're all kind of coming from that, and we're all pretty collegial and friendly there. And so here it's just like, yeah, we're just gonna keep talking and have just a slightly more narrow focus on trying to get past a group of trolls that bullied us several times. Like it's the FOMO is still there. Like I hate missing a session, and I check my Discord like by the minute if I can't be there because I'm like, okay, what happened though? But what happened? I'm waiting for those adventure logs.
It's like you're worried about missing out on the experience, not like necessarily missing out on the treasure.
Mm.
Though missing
Yeah.
out on XP is always painful.
Yeah, but like when something weird happens, like last night, like I had to step away for literally 30 minutes and I missed a bombshell of a moment, and I'm a little bit sad about it.
Yeah, it was revealed last night that one of the player characters has been infected with lycanthropy. And he
That's
turned
not
on the
good.
No, and it was they had it was perfect too. Like it was one of those instances where like just letting the dice do their thing was like it really worked well. One of the characters has a magic item that only works that gives them a +1 to attack when the moon is full, and it's a random roll every time they start the game. If they roll a 1, the moon is full, and I've been waiting for that to happen to trigger the transformation in Larry's character. So Zach rolls the 1, so it's a full moon. I know that's going to happen. Then they get right outside of the settlement. They get attacked by spiders, and it's like a mess. It's not like a terrible encounter. Nobody dies. It was a little bit dangerous, but like everybody kind of got lumped up, and it took all the magic. So they're like, let's go back to town. And it was just perfect that like they had to go back to town so close, and then they had to sleep on a full moon. So Larry in town, werewolf kills a villager, runs off. It's great. It was just so dramatic and perfect, and like I didn't do anything. It was all it just happened organically through the use of the random encounters and like the charts that I built and have been using for the game.
That randomness feels like a real part of the old school experience.
It's funny. I never trusted for it to work. Like I just always was like, well, I'll make sure that things work right. But like one of my decisions for this from the start was to just like be as neutral as possible. Just let, like I didn't really want, you guys had things that were interesting to do last night. I didn't really want to do the random encounter. And I often don't want to do the random encounter because I feel like, it's just time wasting and nobody wants to do it. But then like out of that comes like sort of dramatic opportunity that I never expect.
And you're running this using OSC, right?
I am. And boy, is that a lean and mean system.
Oh, hell yeah, it is.
Sometimes frustratingly so. But I also think that like we have like a lot of room to modify it and mess with it so that it works the way we want it to.
I was just gonna say it leaves a lot of open space for role play. Like, we're not rolling perception checks or, deception checks all the time. We're talking and, working things out very organically.
Yeah, I like
that cliche.
coming coming from Call of Cthulhu, where like you have to roll for so many spot hiddens and to get information has also been interesting because like when you're in a place, I just tell you what it is and you have to deal with it. Like you kind of puzzle it out from there. But like you get the baseline information right off the top, which is cool. It's really flexible. I mean, like Clay's character has a tentacle arm, which he got through play.
Oh, that's cool.
This is the second time one of Clay's characters has mutated.
Yes. The last time though, he got some neat mutations and then immediately died. That was the 3-player kill event that was referenced earlier, where we were minding our own business and a bunch of manticores just swooped in on their mighty wings and attacked us.
See, the beautiful thing about this too is that I could modify classic D&D monsters like the manticore that has stupid wings, and I can just take the wings off and they become terrifying killers of men. It's great. There were 5 players that night. I got 3 of them. I would have gotten a 4th if Andy didn't spend his luck point, and I probably would not have gotten Larry because he's always like got 1 foot off the map. But it was brutal, man.
I think Andy also had his magic scarf that like protected him from one of the kill shots in addition to spending a luck.
Yeah, so. I got Andy twice.
So he was saved by a scarf?
Yeah, so I have this this thing where the idea of like people fleeing, I wanted to burden them with stuff. So that I have a bunch of charts that can like you could get like people you have to take care of and you know, pieces from your previous community that you kind of have to like safeguard. And if you take 2 of them at character creation, you also get like a minor magical item that gives you like a boon. So one of those was like this scarf that once per combat or once per session, you could use it to like just not get hit.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. Minor effects. That's the same with Zach's little moon token is the thing that gives him a +1 to attack when it's on the off chance that it's a full moon.
And along with that, we have the burdens where you may, you roll and you may have something that you have to take care of. Like Justin's character has a pet raccoon that he has to take care of.
Yeah, Scraps the raccoon, who is afraid of the dark. I think that was his little quirk.
Yes.
So very early on, we kind of figured out like how to do that. The funny thing though, the funny thing too about some of that stuff and just the way that like the narratives kind of emerge and unfold. Andy's character Dang was this barbarian who had like 2 hit points and ended up dying in like a really gruesome way to some gross zombies. Like some gross undead. And so his scarf, his bloodied scarf, ended up getting recycled back into the pool of items. And eventually, like a recent player ended up rolling for it, and they sure enough ended up with that bloodied scarf again. So they have a new lucky scarf.
And some of the burdens were like past traumas, like the nightmares. There's all sorts of stuff that like is baked in there that I was hoping to, as we do sort of like a downtime system and build a community where characters are spending their gold to build sort of institutions within the town that they'll benefit from in small ways, that will have more chance to play with kind of those little bits of fuckery.
I do love a good bit of fuckery in an RPG.
I think when you talked about the cooperative nature of this group, that also comes across in how interested they are in building the settlement and making it a better place. And like we recently just established trade with the Hobgoblin village that we kind of had to prove that we were not going to be a problem for them by defeating some trolls. And then so we made kind of an alliance, and then we're like, hey, maybe our settlements can be trade partners. And so together we built a road, and it's just like, this is cool. We have like trade with a bunch of vegetarian hobgoblins down the way from us.
I also love, like, I don't even know why they're vegetarian. Like they're not vegetarian in my notes, but like they became vegetarian. Somebody asked me a question. I was like, oh no, there's no animals here at all. And then I was just, well, they're vegetarian. That's what they are. They're very good at ceramics too. I don't know. Like it all just kind of happened on the fly, The whole idea, and I don't know if this is working, I mean, there's certainly a lot of mysteries. Everybody is aware of them. There might be too many mysteries. But the idea was to make to replace to a certain extent lots of dungeon crawling and combat with a lot of like mysterious things that had to be unraveled through exploration, and having them become like a dense web where they all sort of obscure each other. Yeah. So, I mean, like, I think of it as a mystery crawl. I don't know if it's working or not, but it's been fun.
I think it's working. I think,
Yeah.
it's an interesting kind of juxtaposition where you're like worried about these things like, oh, well, I really want to see how that works out. And in the short term, you're like, I really hope I don't die in the next 5 minutes. So
Yeah, it almost feels like it feels like a combination. I like that idea of like mystery crawl, but it also feels like a puzzle crawl too, right? Like a lot of those mysteries are also sort of tied up in obstacles or like monsters or foes or whatever that like we kind of see as puzzles to try and solve. So for a long time, for instance, the trolls were sort of the puzzle to wrap our head around.
Mhm.
We thought of, I don't know, we probably thought up and discarded a good dozen or so ideas, ranging from like I don't know, trying to set the entire like marshy forest on fire to smoking them out to I don't know, assassination. None of them worked out well. And finally, we were just like, all right, we have 8 people. We're going to go and just hell or high water. We're going to figure out what happens. We only lost one, which is great.
Yeah.
But we kind of keep thinking there's a few others. Like there's a cataplepus that's just in a random hex. And we know we have to deal with it at some point. But right now, it's fine. And there's like an iron golem that is sort of blocking an underground passageway. And we know we have to deal with. We haven't quite wrapped our heads around how yet. And so that's where a lot of the collaborative stuff comes together too, where we're trying to knock our like at least I'm gonna try and contribute my like 5 brain cells that I've got and figure out what dumb idea I can come up with.
we try to strategize about some of our bigger enemies, and like we go around and round and discuss whether we're ready or not.
The conversations about the like when you guys were talking about like building a giant turtle shell to like go
Oh,
after the manticores, and like there's just so many. It's great. Some of the stuff like the manticores are there by design. Like those hexes, I was just like, I want manticores there, tall grass, that's where they live. But then like other stuff, like you met the catablepus on the second session, and that was a random encounter roll, and he's just living there, and he's haunting that swamp, and someday you're gonna have to deal with him. But like it's great because like I in a million years I can't imagine meaning to put a catablepus anywhere and have it loom so greatly over your proceedings. Like you've literally been talking about that guy for a year and
mhm.
haven't ever gone anywhere near him. You caught sight of him. They were like the dead birds on the berm, and you were just like, nah, this is beyond us.
Well, and like we don't really want to mess with it. It's just too dangerous not to. And I think that's an interesting thing is we don't always just roll in ready to murder everybody. We one of our favorite NPCs is Fingal the Brownie, who we just adore going to visit, and he makes us all kinds of delightful confections for us to eat, and we'd like to hear what they are, and then we try to bring him gifts and help him with his chores, and it's just a wonderful little time every time we go there.
Fingal, also a random encounter that I was just like, well, I got a brownie. I got to do something with this. And like, he's like another thing that has just become like so enmeshed. Like it feels like he was like that there was intent behind him, but there wasn't. And it's great. The hope is to compile this. I've talked to Exalted Funeral about it, about compiling this as an official old school essentials campaign, and I want it to sort of be. I want to keep the stuff like Fingal, who things that have grown to become like so closely identified with the campaign for me, but I also want to like leave a lot of space for people to roll stuff, and hopefully like populate the hexes with like weird stuff that'll loom large for them differently.
Yeah, like when we were in the southeast, it's funny like now I can't look at the map and not think of like all these different regions, right? Like in the southeast there's these really cool mud flats and we didn't like I'm playing a druid right now, Bedford. It was this very old crunchy dude and he kind of recognized that this is probably like high druidic work of some kind, changing, stone to mud. And then we ended up meeting and talking with some roaming dogs, I believe. And they warned us about Skymouth and Lakemouth. And I heard those like in all caps. I was like, what are those? And then like 5 minutes later, we discovered, oh, Skymouth is a rock. And we discovered that because the rock carried my character off. And so now like I'm sure that like other folks like pick this up and run with it, but it's like there's Skymouth, there's Lakemouth, and then there's we met this really weird fire serpent newt gecko thing that Bedford immediately started calling Firemouth. And yeah, like the it kind of just fills itself in really cool ways.
Yeah, because Lakemouth and Skymouth were random encounters that were on the board when you encountered the dogs. You people talk to so many animals, and like that naming convention was again just me on the fly being like, ah, God, what would a dog call a giant snapping turtle that that can swallow things whole? This Lakemouth, sure, it's a mouth in the lake. To have that chaos lizard get lumped in with that, and he was a design encounter, is really great. Like it's cool seeing all that happen. I don't like it's endlessly like kind of entertaining for me.
We should note that Justin's character Bedford was his first character's burden as his older brother that he was taking care of. So
That's right.
It's some of that even on the player side has been happening on the fly.
Yeah. And Bedford got carried away by the rock and was landed in a mountain and managed to get his way back after a few weeks out of play. And there's a couple characters currently that are out of play that might return.
Yeah, that's the hope. See, it's funny, like we all grow pretty attached to each other's characters. Like I really like Andy's character that he's playing right now, BW Brent, who's just this like very earnest sort of like farmhand kind of a kid, but like is also a candle maker. And so wherever he goes, Andy has Brent make candles and like set candles places, and it's this really nice little character touch that adds a lot of good stuff to the game.
I think everybody's really kind of leaned into their profession outside of adventure, and I think that fits the setting very well as a bunch of basically refugees. It's like, well, we used to do this, and we didn't choose to be adventurers so much as it happened to us.
Yeah. And that all came out of the character generator, right?
Oh yeah.
The professions. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I think most of the names have come out of there, and some haven't. But I think Justin hit it well, where we're all attached to each other's characters in some ways. And I don't know if I'm being presumptuous, but it feels like they're all our characters. It's just someone else is playing with them. Like if someone had to fill in playing one of the regulars, you'd know how to do it. If Larry weren't there, how Talian's gonna act.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's so funny because I've started to like, I have to catch myself because I keep thinking of Larry as a coward. And I have no idea if Larry's a coward or not. I mean, but it's just he's becoming Talion in my head. If Talion ever gets killed, I don't know what's gonna happen.
No one ever judges the mage for hiding in the back.
No.
Like, oh yeah.
Well, Stu definitely knows a lot about that, especially turning into a damn tree. Mage hiding out in the back.
You gotta do what it takes to survive, man.
And this is an NPC from our 2E campaign that went on for 11, 12 years.
Yeah.
And it's an NPC that normally, if it was a television show, would have gotten like killed off at the end of the first season. And somehow he's still there at the finale, and now he's a fan favorite. And you're like, talk about job security and like residuals for syndication for Greel.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was nice too because like he was like my perpetual out. Like if you all got captured, he was a tree. He wasn't going to get captured. No. So like he was always your ticket out of jail.
So one thing that's always amusing to me about our sessions is how lighthearted and fun they are, and we laugh so much, and then we lose a character and we're all somber and we all mourn that character frequently in our adventure logs, but then we're always like, oh man, I can't believe it. So that I know that Stu mentioned in his previous podcast about this, about we had a character that we're doing well in a combat, and then the killer bee just comes up and zap, he's gone, and we're all like, oh man. But it is just kind of speaks to how close knit I think the party is.
Well, it's interesting how, to your point last night when I was just like, Larry, kill him. Like he was just like, I don't like the whole temperature of the group changed. I was like, all right, I got to figure out a way to like get him out of this because he didn't want to do it.
Yeah, and it's also interesting too, just because we have like over the last year, Clay and I got and I think all of us especially got really invested in it. And so, after every session we do an adventure log. And initially they started out pretty bare bones, but a lot of us started writing a bit more and a bit more. And it got to the point where Clay and I really started to try to keep track of everything as much as we could. We compiled everything into a mega doc. So over the last year, this mega document has grown to over 120 pages, and it's
Jeez.
growing like every single day or every single session, basically.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it's wild because we've only explored like a fraction of the overland map. We've explored, I think, 26-ish like Uber hex is what we call them, out of what, like 75, 80 or so.
There's 93,
90,
I think.
yeah, and we've only seen 26. But at the same time, we've managed to make a lot of good progress. So if you're a first timer, you'll end up jumping in with about 1,000 experience and 1,000 gold, which is just enough to like kind of bump you almost directly to level 2 based on whatever class you start. And going back to like the collaborative part too, we try to build like a pretty easy onboarding. So it's like make your character, hop in, and we have enough magic items that like we try to distribute the wealth too. So like, you won't be left in the dust at all. We'll get you to survive as much as the rest of us can.
What Justin's saying is come and play. Because
please,
we have
please,
spots. We have a bunch of people who signed up and have not yet played, and I hope that this encourages them to jump in and roll some dice. But I'll up the number of people who could sign up at that tier of the Patreon. And if this sounds interesting, jump on in. It's a lot of fun.
So I will say this. I am not in this game because generally runs at the same time as I have to run play tests or patron games of my own. However, I've played with Stu on the other side of the screen now almost for 20 years, right? And for the last almost 4 years, I've had the pleasure and privilege of playing with Clay and Justin over Discord throughout the entire pandemic. And I can assure you, the caliber of players you're going to be getting in with if you jump in this West Marches campaign, you're going to have a blast. And whomever else is there, I probably know them from around the Discord, because after doing this for 7 years, Stu, we built a pretty cool community, and we genuinely would love for you to be a part of it. This is, I feel like, a good place to go home on the episode. Justin, you have a couple things out that you want to plug real quick. Give them a go.
Yeah, so I wrote an article, a critical interview, actually interviewing John and Gio about their game, The Devil in New Jersey. You can find that over on Horror Homeroom. Just search Horror Homeroom and Hambo, and you'll find a really great interview with John and Gio. And then I also wrote a quick review for Los Angeles Review of Books on Stephen Graham Jones' latest horror novel, The Angel of Indian Lake. If you like slasher fiction, if you like indigenous fiction, go check that out. It's a really great trilogy and a really great cap to that trilogy as well.
Very cool. So this is another amazing episode of the Vintage RPG Podcast. Stu, where can the people find you on the internet?
For now, they can find me on Instagram at Vintage RPG, but I'm working hard on converting all of those posts and bringing and migrating them over to my website at vintagerpg.com. And you should sign up there for the newsletter, which is all the cool stuff that goes on Instagram, except without the annoying stuff from Instagram.
Yeah, best of both worlds, guys. You can find me across the internet at John McGuire RPG, and I'm actually posting more because I'm leaving the house more. I'm elbow deep and working on the Hotel Exorcist, working on End of the Downer Nights, working on Brain Eaters. And by the time you hear this episode, I'm very proud to say that Delirium Division, which is a band that is made up of a group of musicians and friends that got together, never in person, during the pandemic to record an album. We finally released our first single. It's called Little Pink Houses. There's links to it all over my social media. It is a complete awesome song, and it's a great experience to finally, after 4 years, be able to share this with the world. So if you get a second, you like the rock and roll music, you like your old buddy HP, why don't you click on one of the links, check out Delirium Division, wherever music is found. And we hopefully will have some more to come soon. So thank you all for listening to that. If you like the show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Your reviews really do help other listeners to find us. And if you really like the show, why not become a patron? Patreon.com/vintagerepg. We got a behind the scenes look at what Stu's working on. We got a behind the scenes look at what I'm working on. We have this amazing West Marches game that you could jump in with Stu. We did a whole damn episode on it. I do a different RPG every month. This month, by the time this episode drops, the Night Crew will be playing Ninja City from Joey Royale, Get Haunted Industries. Next month, I'm going to be adding as one of the options the Fallout RPG, because I just got that, and people have been looking into that. So plenty of cool things to play with me as well. The Killer Discord community we'd love for you to be a part of. Early release episodes for as little as $1 a month. We usually get them out around Friday or Saturday, depending on when we record them. Patreon.com/vintagerepg. I also swear next week my voice will be back to normal. So for Stu Horvath, I'm John Hambone McGuire. May the dice always roll in your favor.
Thanks for listening. Don't forget to like, review, and subscribe to the podcast. Every review helps other listeners to find us. The Vintage RPG Podcast is a ham-fisted production. Music by Dega West. Art by Schaefer Brown. If you like the podcast, you should also consider becoming a patron at patreon.com.